it again. Watch, straight ahead off my flash right there. It's coming this way. It's definitely coming this way.
What's up, everybody? Spin Scott here, the original live jungle and drum and bass finger drummer. That was a mix or mashup of two of my all-time super classic favorite tracks from Photek. Rings Around Saturn and UFO. Both of those tracks came out, believe it or not, they were two sides of a 12-inch that came out in 1995, I believe. And they were just amazing. It still sounds like future music to me, right? And it should to you as well. But if you were around back in 1995 listening to jungle or going out to raves or listening to mixtapes or whatever, it was probably hard to find a DJ that was not spinning one, if not both, of those two tracks. And then later the next year, of course, it was the Rain remix, which was on Razor's Edge label. I think that was an affiliate of Metalheadz, if I remember correctly. But yeah, Rings Around Saturn and UFO have been two of my favorite Photek tracks forever, for decades. It was like 30 years now because it's 2025, right? And so I always wanted to create a live, 100% certified organic, loop-free, sequence-free, and Quantize-free beat program of those tracks. Or really, I wanted to do Rings Around Saturn. And I'm going to explain a little bit in a second here how I do all of this, or really at a high level, actually, how I do it. I'll be doing some more deep dives on my Patreon and in some other places. But when it comes to these tracks, Photek at the time was just taking a bit of a really innovative approach to jungle. There was a lot of Amen tracks going around, lots of Think Break, lots of Apaches, which are all iconic and they're really DNA of jungle, right? And he made a lot of tracks that featured those. As a matter of fact, there's Apaches layered in this too. But his tracks, even when you ask other producers, actually I had a friend of mine tell me the other day, we were talking, I told him I was putting this together, and he said, yeah, he's like, I've watched videos with so many different golden era jungle producers where they understand how they understand how they all kind of did things back in the day, but Photek remains a bit of a mystery because his drums were just different. The precision around his breaks and just the staccato chops and just the way things were chopped up and rearranged and just programmed was amazing, right? And so with me, I come from a background of spinning vinyl for many, many, many years, and I started doing the live jungle stuff on the sampler back in 2012. And I've done a lot of originals with this, but then I also like to do classics from time to time. So pretty recently, actually, I did another one of Photek's under a different alias of his. It was Drift to the Center was the track, and Aquarius was the name he went by for that one. And you can look back on the channel and see that one. I play it at shows all the time now. It's Drift to the Center is one of my favorite tracks ever too. But I like to do classics. I've done other ones. I've done Junglist by Congo Natty. I've done Doc Scott for Shadowboxing. He went by Octave 1, and Shadowboxing is a classic. And I like doing a lot of those. And like I mentioned earlier, I always wanted to do one for Rings Around Saturn, but the drums were just really a challenge. I mean, honestly, at this point, the jungle finger drumming thing has sort of hit mainstream. There's some of these younger EDM kids doing it now, and that's wonderful. And I think anyone at this point can do live amens and Apaches and think breaks and stuff like that. But I really wanted to take things up a notch with these Photek tracks. And so I chose these two, and I put it together on here. And it was basically a big journey to dissect and re-engineer these tracks without losing the flavor of the originals. And so I'll show you real quick what I did with the 4 banks in the MPC. Again, the MPC 1000 here has 4 banks, A, B, C, and D, and you can load up samples on all 16 pads for each of those different banks. And so I'll show you what's on here, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. And then again, I'll make some deep dive lessons available on this very, very soon. I'm working on a lot of content for that. But here we go. So on bank 1, I've just got these effects down here. They are mostly from UFO on here, but the water sound is taken from Rings Around Saturn. And then we've got the classic UFO tape samples here. And I've got this one. And this, you got, usually says that's something in the middle of the trees, but because I'm calling this remix or replay rather Rings Around UFOs, I figure you're already in space, so you probably don't want to hear about trees. So that's how I did that. And then in the middle, I just got these one-shot drums. And again, what I mean by one-shots is they're single hits, right? So you get these two drums, you can do drum rolls here. And so when you put all that together, you can do something like this. Like something like that, right? And so then bank B, I go into this, and I have these jazz samples in here. Now these are from Rings Around Saturn, but then those UFO-y kind of effects in the background are from the UFO. And so I really wanted to mash those together. Now, what you'll notice on this is on the bottom, like I said, everything is a one-shot, meaning that when I hit it, it does things one time. But the nature of this is that sometimes notes will sustain. So this doesn't just sound like this and cut off. It actually plays through, and I have these cutting each other off, but there's some artifacts too. So if I play that through, you hear it kind of playing, but I don't play it through that much. So adding those with these shuffles are really why I wanted to make this, right? And so, with playing it real time like this without locking yourself into any loops or sequences or quantization, you're able to play any tempo you want. So it really allows it to breathe like jazz music or really any other type of jazz, whereas traditional electronic music, or as people call it now, EDM, is programmed to a specific BPM, and you can pitch it up and slow it down, but you're locked in. And so a lot of people play with samplers, and a lot of people use loops and sequences, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I enjoy doing it all as one-shots because I come from a drumming background. I've been playing the kit since I was right around 4 years old, and so to me, this is the most fun way to play. I don't want to be locked into hitting things at a specific tempo. So I'll show you what I mean by that. I can do this at the tempo approximately that I played the original program at, or I can speed up like this. Or we can go super slow. So like that, okay? And so then bank C, we get into, this is more just like the drum and bass kind of part where there's no vocals, there's no melodies, but I retuned some of the UFO kind of white noise samples in the background. And I did that for a couple of reasons, but the main is I wanted to add a little bit of a melody to here, but have this kind of be like the rollout in the middle of the track. So like that. And then bank D, I go back into my favorite part of this mashup, and I wanted to take things a little bit to the next level with the melody. I should, if I didn't mention it already, tracks like Rings Around Saturn and UFO, there's certain tracks in jungle or in any kind of music that are just perfect and flawless the way they are, and really, it's sort of a no-no to even attempt to remix them, right? Because they're perfect, they're a snapshot in time, they're flawless, everything else. So while I would never really want to do a remix of these tracks in a traditional sense, I really wanted to play them live, right? And so I then really wanted to take a little bit of a liberty at the end to do something with the melody. And so these are just playing like this. I hit them just in sequence, right to left, and I added that high-pitched string sample in there. And you'll hear this play through a little bit. So you hear the little bit of the next melodies and the sample come through. And then... So that's how I put together at a high level my UFOs around Saturns, or Rings Around UFOs, or I don't know what I'm going to call the video yet. I'm kind of freestyling this whole thing. It's not really planned. I just built the program within the past 2 days, so if it sounded a little bit rough, that's okay. But yeah, if you want to check out the originals of these, once again, they are by Photek. They came out in 1995 on vinyl, A-side, B-side, or in this case, it's a double A-side. That was in 95, and then they are also available on this CD, which came out in 1998, Form and Function. I believe there was a Form and Function Part 2 as well. I'm not sure about that, but this disc, which is probably available digitally now for download, has the original 3 versions of UFO, The Water Margin, and Rings Around Saturn, as well as some remixes of those and some different tracks as well. I highly recommend picking this up if you want an education on super classic jungle. And that's about it. We'll wrap it up here. Once again, I am Spin Scott, and I appreciate you watching the video. If you want to follow me on YouTube, I've got a channel there. I'm also setting up my Patreon, which is right in the midst of being officially launched. I'll be teaching some of this stuff on there as well. So make sure you check that out, and I welcome you to join. And then I hope to see you at one of the many upcoming gigs in 2025. Cheers.